Inside this room, all of my dreams become realities, and some of my realities become dreams.
What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here? Alive! It's alive! It's alive!
You are listening to The Wilder Ride, getting wilder by the minute. Here are your hosts, Alan Sanders and Walt Murray.
And welcome back to The Wilder Ride, Getting Wilder by the Minute, a podcast where we break down and celebrate the films of Gene Wilder 1 minute at a time. Our inaugural Season 1 movie that we've picked is Young Frankenstein. I'm Alan Sanders, I'm one of your hosts.
And I'm your co-host, Walt Murray.
And wrapping up the work week with us, doing a lot of yeoman's work here on the show, we've got Matt Gray and Ben Peacock, a couple of private eyes. Welcome back to the show.
Good to be here.
Thank you guys for having us.
You ever sing the Hall & Oates song, Private Eyes, or Watching You?
Private eyes, they're watching you. They see your every move.
I hate that song. No, we should have that as our whole
We actually
music.
go more with like the Culture Club type stuff. Matt does especially.
Yeah,
I'm a more of a
that's
Queen
big.
man myself.
We know.
The bands. Man, I hate that. I keep having to clarify that.
Wait, what Culture Club song is about private eyes?
Oh, I was just saying he likes the colorful music and the outfits.
Oh, gotcha.
And he kind of looks like Boy George.
Now that's a compliment.
Well,
Do you really want to hurt me?
Do you really want to make me cry?
Do you really want to hurt me?
Was not expecting that turn. That's my bad. Once again.
Oh, that's
I appreciate the places you steer us. All right, well, let's get to it. Our episode to close out the work week here on Friday is minute number 35. And in this minute, we start off with the good doctor and Inga sitting at breakfast still, having just offered her a kipper last minute. And the good doctor goes back to read from the journal aloud. And it ends with Igor showing what he's been working on, a picture with a very large pad saying something like this. So let's go ahead and break this down. Walt, let's open this up. We continue exactly where we left off. He offered her a kipper, and we go right back to this very pedestrian, very domestic-looking scene of just two people enjoying breakfast.
Yes, and I don't know how you enjoy breakfast when it includes a kipper, as we talked about last week. But yeah, they still have that light, bright scene, the sunshine coming in the windows, and everybody's happy, even Igor eating cheese off his pencil, and everybody's really in a great mood.
Ben, from your perspective on this scene, because now we realize he's still reading from the journal. The last time, he was in a bit of a manic state. What are your thoughts as he's continuing to read this journal, but in a much more normal, professorish state?
Yeah, I think it goes back to what we said before. There's an element of relief now. You know, the weight's taken off his shoulders. He knows that his family history isn't completely crazy, and that there's a lot of truth to what they were writing. And I think he's kind of happy with who he is now. He's kind of complete in who he is and what he's doing. And it is interesting. We talked about tones earlier. The way the movie looks is different now, which I think, again, goes back to the benefit of it being in black and white. But yeah, I think him being happy is a nice way to say it.
So, Matt, when you discovered things about yourself and come to grips with them, do you suddenly feel as if a weight has been taken off of your shoulders?
It depends on what you discover about yourself. Oh, boy. But yeah, that's usually how it goes.
I do find this interesting. I'm going to move along here.
Feel free to edit that right out.
I find it interesting that they have to give us an explanation in this film as to why they need a large body, why they need to have somebody big. Reading from the book saying, as the minuteness of the parts formed a great hindrance to my speed, I resolved to make the creature of a gigantic stature. And then Dr. Frankenstein looks up and says, of course, that would simplify everything. And then what I think is cool is we get an insight, another layer of Inga. I said not that long ago, and I think it was mostly corroborated, she didn't come across necessarily as dumb, certainly naive, but now we definitely have it confirmed. She's not a dumb person.
No, she's definitely not a dumb person. She's keeping right up with the doctor as he's giving the explanation. She's extrapolating out the information and understands that because he would have to have a big head and big arms and big everything else, that he's going to have an enormous...
You're jumping ahead now. It's okay.
Well, not really.
Yeah, well, no, it is the next line.
Yeah.
But, yeah, she does say, in other words, his veins, his feet, his hands, his organs would all have to be increased in size. And confirming, the doctor's like, exactly.
Yes.
So they are both on the exact same page.
Yeah, and it's impressive that she, because we don't know a whole lot about her yet, and that she is really able to keep up with him. He's obviously a brilliant doctor. So
I like what it's doing here, though. It is forming now that relationship between the lab assistant and the doctor, where obviously you don't want a dummy in there with you. She's not eye candy. We've said that before. She's not just serving in that role. She has a purpose, and it's not, a stereotypical, and she's not the damsel in distress. She's actually a functioning member of the cast.
Yeah, and he's also kind of brought her in as a confidant and as a inside the circle member of the team.
Well, and like you said, he's now reading from the book, and they're part of those conversations.
Do you like it when you're part of the conversation, Matt?
Sometimes. Depends. Like I said, usually these conversations are against me, and it's more of me defending myself, but yeah.
Like
it's
you
nice
do
to be
in court.
Oh, well, I haven't been caught yet, Ben. And if there's a pretty good editing team here, I won't be caught again.
All right, well, check's in the mail, right?
Check is in the mail.
All right, good deal. We worked out a separate deal. What I like about this scene as well is just as we are getting into the sense of normalcy, it's a breakfast scene, we do cut across to Igor for a moment while they're talking, and it is kind of funny how he is eating cheese with his pencil and goes right back to drawing after having to apparently lick the tip of his pencil.
Been there.
It's the only way to really eat cheese, isn't it?
With lead.
So we don't know what he's working on. We just get the sense that Igor's got this big giant sketch pad, and he's going to town there while these two are talking. And as they come to the realization of needing a large host for this experiment, it does go to the joke you were mentioning, that after you're talking about, well, he's got to have big hands, big feet, what else must you have a big one?
Yeah, the big schwanzstucker.
The schwanzstucker. We think we all know what she's talking about, don't we?
Yeah, a big German artillery piece, I'm assuming, right? That's what it sounds like
exactly
to me.
right.
Some Schnitzengruben.
Nailed it, man.
Something to take down an M1 Sherman, probably.
Well, it made me wonder, is that the German word? I mean, if we're talking about the male appendage, is it a schwanzstucker? Is that what you call it? So it just so happens we have a friend to the show. So let's ask our buddy Malta from Germany what he thinks about this particular word, and if he's got any other insights into this particular moment of minute 35 of Young Frankenstein.
Hey everyone, yes, this is Malta Dirks live from Germany, the official German translator and friend of the Wilder Ride, getting wilder by the minute. And here's what's happening in this particular minute. Inga says the line, he would have an enormous schwanzstucker. Basically, schwanzstucker obviously refers to his penis, but the word schwanzstucker doesn't really exist in German. However, if you Google it, it does exist. It seems to be a known phenomenon derived from this particular movie. So if you Google the word schwanzstucker, it exists, but it's not German, really. What it refers to basically is Schwanz, which is a word for penis, and Stucker sort of means like probably Stück, which is piece. So I guess a couple of more appropriate words for penis in German could be Schwanz, Stück, Penis, Ding, Teil, Stange, Hammer, Rohr, Gerät, Lurch, Eumel, Glied, Gemächt, and, inspired by one of the Rammstein songs, Fleischgewehr, which really means meat gun. Anyway, that's all I have for this minute. This has been your German counterpart to the Wilder Ride. Back to you, Alan and Walt.
Wow, who knew there were so many words in German that could have been used instead of Schwanzstucker?
The man did his homework.
Schwanzstucker. I still like Schwanzstucker because the way she says it, when she says it, it's like that sense of like, oh,
Yeah.
It's not perverse. It's just like, oh, that'll be big too.
Well, and after seeing this, I was absolutely convinced that was the word for it. I absolutely believed it. She sold me on that.
Don't you agree? The look on her face is perfect.
It is
And then
awesome.
back to Wilder when he says that his little part there too. I mean, it couldn't be done.
Yeah,
better.
I love his reaction when he hears that, and he sort of just looks up and looks across like, well, that goes without saying.
We've said this before, Walt, and we can repeat it over and over. Gene Wilder knows how to use the pause. He knows how to use his eyes and his facial expressions. We don't need to fill it with a line here. Just take your time and sell the fact that, did she just say what? Yes, she did. She just said.
He's like in the middle of eating. He's like, huh.
Yeah.
And he kind of brings us along with him because through this scene that the audience is going to laugh. There are several really great points for laughter. And he does a great job right there of pausing, giving us the opportunity to laugh, and bringing us right back into the scene.
And it works. It's not a stupid joke because we've just got done talking about you got to have big veins, big hands, big feet. It's got to be a 7-foot frame. She just makes the next natural assumption that, he hadn't thought of, but goes without saying.
Sure, absolutely.
I find fault in that logic personally, but it does go without saying.
Me too.
Hashtag perfect science.
I do like that expression that when it comes back to her, and he finally, after he says, yeah, it goes without saying, she's like, woo. Like, whoa, that's going to be a lot.
Yeah, well, and then Igor, right behind that.
Yeah, as soon as you realize he is paying attention to their conversation, he throws this little one-liner in here. He's going to be quite popular.
That's great. It's perfect.
Which goes completely against everything we know about Frankenstein's creature. It's never popular.
No,
definitely not going to be anything
popular.
good about it.
Definitely not. Well, one of the things that I noticed as I was researching this minute.
Now, exactly what parts of the minute were you researching?
was my
if you could
question.
detail
Well,
this
I
out
had
a little bit.
one part paused for like 10 minutes. But this scene is interesting because Dr. Frankenstein obviously is changing. He's going through this realization of who he is, putting some stuff behind him, embracing the Frankenstein name. Inga, we're getting a little bit more understanding of who she is, but Inga and Igor stay the same. They're still the same characters, but Dr. Frankenstein is definitely morphing.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have that consistency of those two characters, and yet we're seeing the transition of Dr. Frankenstein, and we have this kind of very temporary sanity that
Very temporary.
he shows us.
Well, I think what works in that, for this reason, is Igor doesn't know him. Inga doesn't know him. He's obviously the central character, but for them, they were added to the film or in the storyline. One's sort of the henchman helper. She's the lab assistant. They stay consistent because that's what they were told. This is your role.
Mm-hmm.
To her, it's not weird because if he's into it, well, she's just there to help. Sure. And Igor knows everything his grandfather did, and that worked for the grandfather, so he's along for the ride,
That's
too.
what I do.
It's not strange to them at all.
No.
Now, the shot when he goes right back to his writing, you once again can't help to look that his eyes are on both sides of the page at the exact same time.
Well, I was kind of wondering how he's even drawing.
Yeah, it made me wonder how that drawing came to be.
We use that. I think I can retell the joke again. Mel Brooks had often said he'd go to breakfast. I don't know if you knew this, Ben. He'd go to breakfast with Marty Feldman. They'd go to a diner, and he would order a couple of eggs sunny side up. And Mel Brooks would say, "Bring it in 2 plates. Put it one over here and over here so he can see them both."
That's great.
Because you put them down together, he won't see them. And Marty went along right with it. So that's self-deprecating humor that you can either be angry about your condition or you can go with it. And he just goes with it.
He's kind of the piece in the whole movie that kind of ties it together, with the humor and just the subtlety with which he speaks. And again, the physical humor. It's not like he's always falling down or anything like that, but just the facial expressions. Even here on this, like those big bushy eyebrows and the eyes pointing different ways, and it's perfect.
And then the quick wit. And he's always there. He's never wandering off. He's always in the scene. He's always a part of what's going on. But he's always there to kind of throw that knuckleball at you.
I think that's a perfect way to describe it. A pitch that you have no idea where it's going to go.
Not
it's
a
just
clue.
floating everywhere.
Sometimes not even the pitcher knows where it's going.
Well, that's the fun of the knuckleball, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
I'd hate to be the catcher.
Oh.
We move into continuing the discussion where they're having, again, a very scientific discussion. The doctor says he's going to need to be about 7 feet in height with all features either congenitally or artificially proportionate in size. Now, I'm going to look at the words here. Artificially in size. What are we talking about?
All I can assume is that it goes back to the old Frankenstein monster that was pieced together from multiple cadavers. And that, if we got to hack off an arm to get a better arm, or if we got to hack off a leg, so be it. But we have to make sure that it's big enough to work with.
And I guess that makes sense. When I hear that, it's a crazy phrase to me, saying artificial, like, what are we going to do? We're going to insert like a dig dug balloon and start going until it gets to the right size, but hope before it pops.
I guess so. Well, and I was kind of thinking about, we've all done the biology stuff in high school where you cut the frog open and, you look at the liver and you look at the other stuff, but those things are so small. And then I guess when you go to med school and you work on actual cadavers, if you've worked on those small things...
Just a Tuesday for Matt.
Just a Tuesday for Matt. That's right. That's
basement,
right. So
it puts the lotion on itself.
Oh, God.
Puts it back in the basket.
Don't bring that up around Ben. No.
Put the lotion in the basket.
Yeah, that's what I was waiting for, was Ben's take.
So I that was kind of what I was thinking, is that having worked with the frogs in high school, I assume it would be easier to work with a bigger subject to get it to work better.
And I guess with using the word congenital, in this case, born that way.
Mm-hmm.
So either we got to find someone who's just born that way, insert Lady Gaga, or we can do some kind of artificial enhancement, either by piecing together, as you said, stitching them together. Hey, we're on Stitcher. And, or, maybe plastic surgery. I mean, is that where the schwanzstucker comes from?
I guess so. I guess so. Or maybe just a natural outgrowth of all this, I guess.
Before we get to, because this is going to be a short minute if we don't come up with some more stuff to talk about. What do you got? I'm struggling here because all I got left is the picture.
Yeah, that's all I've got.
All right, well, that's fine. It's Friday. All right, well, as we continue the scene, he gets up and he looks out the window. In fact, he even kind of opens the window a little bit, and we are definitely seeing a sunlit day. One of the few, I think maybe one of the only scenes that is sunlit in the whole movie. And they're talking about, what size this person needs to be. All of a sudden, Igor turns around and says, something like this, and shows us what he's been working on, and it just so happens to look exactly like the Boris Karloff Frankenstein's monster.
Yes, it is. Huge, lumbering,
green.
I can see where this is... Yeah, I was waiting for that punchline.
Why is his face blurred out like, when you have footage at noon of people that you want to protect their identities? It's like, is that supposed to make sure we don't know who he is?
I guess so, and it's so interesting because the outfit that he's wearing is even the same outfit that the Frankenstein monster wore in the 31 movie, with the sleeves too long, the pants too short. I mean, the sleeves too short, pants too short. He drew the Frankenstein monster.
It's exactly as I remember the sketches and stuff from the Boris Karloff, horror monster movie. But his face is all rubbed out as if, but we got to protect his identity. We don't want you to know who it actually is.
Don't quite know yet.
Again, just his face there. It just blows me away.
Hilarious.
Almost like a puppy who's happy to show you something that he killed and he's bringing it back to his owner. Yeah. He's like, look, master.
Well, with that, does that remind you at all of Herman Munster as well? Which obviously was taken, was a comedy taken on in the 60s, I think, about these monsters that all live together.
Well, and I thought it was funny that he would, dress him up that way and make him really the 31 Frankenstein monster. Why not dress him up nice, make him look really safe and, not make him look monster-like. But, obviously this is kind of some foreshadowing of what's to come. But I've always wondered why they made that choice instead of making him look more safe and easy.
I have to wonder how long they've been talking about this body or what they're going to need, because he didn't just whip that out. That's not a stick figure. That's a pretty good. That's almost what somebody who was doing fashion design or wardrobe design would be doing to put together to say, this is the kind of costume we're looking for this character.
Mm-hmm. That's some good art.
So he's already, it's like he's already reading the doctor's mind. He kind of knows where the doctor wants a step ahead of time.
Or maybe cutting the path for him a little bit.
Give him an idea.
Yeah.
Well, as we begin to wrap up, this is kind of the end of the week. Let me do this. Matt, you've been here before, but Ben, this is your first time here. Share your thoughts overall of just young Frankenstein. Not only when you first saw it as a kid, but just where does it fit in the pantheon of comedy and movies in your life?
Yeah, there's no doubt. To me, it's a top 10 comedy of all time. It's so funny. so many little things that you can go back, especially watching it minute per minute. I'd never done anything like that before. And it's amazing how 5 minutes can feel like half an hour. You know, and then you go back, you notice little things like a couple episodes back we were talking about, you know, the candelabra was there, and those things you just don't get. But as a movie, it's great. I mean, it is so funny. I could not think of better actors to portray these pieces. You know, so many movies now, they're doing remakes or they're doing them again. You could not do this movie today with today's actors and actresses and find anybody who would fit these pieces any better. It's great, and this is early enough in the movie. It's before the monster. You know, when that happens, Peter Boyle's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
He's perfect. So yes, it's a great movie. I'm grateful to be a part of the show the last couple of days. It's one of my favorites of all time. So I'm grateful. Thank you guys.
Question I have for you, which I want to hear what you think. I had someone ask, well, if you look at a comedy and start breaking down the jokes and the foreshadow and the structure a minute ahead of time, are you killing the jokes? Are you killing the comedy? Do you feel like we've lessened the movie for you?
Oh, not at all. I think you've added to it. Like I said, I had been a long time since I'd seen the movie, maybe bits and pieces here or there on TV or just whatever. But no, it gives you a whole new appreciation for the movie. And I would probably like to do this in different genres as well. You know, we're talking about Wilder. I mean, I was thinking, we talked about Blazing Saddles earlier, but like Stir Crazy and stuff like that. I mean, it will totally change the way you look at those movies. I think it give you new appreciation for the jokes as well.
I feel that same way, Walt. What about you?
Oh, no question. And
because I find myself actually laughing now more at scenes that I laughed at, but I was like, okay, now I'm like, oh my God, that is hysterical.
Yeah, and you just realize how many layers are there, and the quality. I mean, you alluded to this. The group that they put together, just of actors for this movie, is unbelievable. And looking at what each one of them has gone on to do, and we were asked earlier this week about our favorite Gene Wilder movies and why we like Gene Wilder and things like that. His depth of personal character, along with his acting ability and his comedic genius, are really unrivaled. I don't know that you can stack too many people up against Gene Wilder and say this person is on equal footing with him.
There are many actors that we can enjoy their performance, but they become forgettable. Gene Wilder stays with you months, years, decades after you've seen. Even if you haven't seen the movie in a while, you remember it.
Well, it's exactly right, because when this whole thing first came up, Walt brought it up to me. I was like, I haven't seen that movie in so long, but you can remember the highlights. It's great.
Yeah, and we immediately started ticking off favorite lines
that's right.
from the movie.
Yep.
I mean, and this is, what did we say, a 44-year-old movie?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what we said?
It'll be 44 years this December.
Yeah, so...
December 2018, depending when you come across the podcast.
Yeah, okay, yeah, so in December of 2018, it's 44 years old. And to think back and say, that movie, 44 years old, made such an impression that in 2018, I'm still laughing at the punchlines. That's incredible.
You think of, you know, Matt's here with us, and Matt's early 20s, I'm mid 40s, you know, and it still is relatable to someone, you know, 20 years younger.
Well, that's what I was going to ask,
Absolutely.
Matt, because when we talked with you last time, that was one of our first questions. Would this movie, with this comedic style, be accessible to the 20-somethings of today? Because you even, I think in your minute, you said, I was worried when you said, go home and watch this. I'm like, oh, crap, what if I don't find it funny? Do I go back to work and lie? But you said you actually enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's like I said. I mean, it's always risky because comedy doesn't always transfer well between generations. And this is an older film. And the only Mel Brooks and Gene Wilder experience I had was Willy Wonka and Blazing Saddles. And of course, I found Blazing Saddles hilarious. But, you know, that could be a one-off thing. But, you know, happy to say that in every sense of the word, this is funny. And I think I'd have no issue at all if someone said, oh, watch this movie, it's Mel Brooks and Gene Wilder. I'd be like, sure, anything, sure.
I'm in, yeah. So, Matt, you have a pretty rich sense of humor, so I'm not saying you're easily entertained.
I think the word you're looking for is depraved.
Depraved. I was trying to be nice for a change.
Good.
Obviously, your generation is very different than the generation that I grew up in.
Memes and vines.
Yeah, and the attention span is shorter. You're bombarded with a whole lot more information.
Sketch comedy, stuff like that.
Sketch comedy. And the movies are different now. You know, they really do kind of have to just be really fast-paced and things like that. If you were to take this movie and to show it to a group of your friends in your age group, how do you think they would respond to it?
Well, since most of my friends are like me, I think they'd have no issue with it at all.
Awesome.
And I think there's a lot to be said for subtlety in comedy. And, even though this is a big, bombastic, lots of laughs kind of a thing, there's, like you said, the pauses that Gene Wilder does and the one-liners that Igor comes off with. Yeah, there's a lot to be said for it. And I think my friends would have no problem watching these movies.
As we've gone through it a minute at a time, like Ben alluded to, do you find yourself appreciating the layers and even more?
Oh yeah, very much so. It's easy to find the humor in all these jokes, especially when you dissect it by just the minute and the jokes that are, because the jokes happen in the movie and then the next scenes come up and you're like, oh, and then you're finding that funny and you move on. But now that you're focusing on one thing, you're like, wow, that's a funny joke.
Fantastic. Love having had you guys here, especially when we played the Scooby-Doo minutes earlier this week, playing detective, trying to figure out where that... We still don't know where the violin came from. We can't forget that. At some point, something led Dr. Frankenstein or Frankenstein down to find this book that now he's so excited. He's even forgotten, well, how did I get down here? What does it matter? Whose violin? It doesn't matter. I've got the book. So we'll have to keep that in the back of our minds moving into next week, Walt.
Yes, I have to pay attention.
All right, well, with that, we are done with episode 35, but we don't want you to go anywhere. We want you to come back next week, take the weekend off, maybe, do some sketch work of your own, see if you can come up with a new monster figure or something. Maybe you could sell it to Mattel or some other toy line. But we want you to come back next week where we begin minute number 36 with Dr. Frankenstein or Frankenstein walking toward the sketch saying, well, hello. And then Dr. Frankenstein saying, get down. I wonder why. Is it a dance thing? Is it a Bee Gees?
I can't
Get
wait
down.
Thriller. It's Thriller.
Thriller?
Yeah.
So come on back on Monday. Walt, if people want to learn a little bit more over the weekend, do a little research about the two nuts that are running this podcast, where can they go?
I can't understand why anybody wouldn't want to, so what you need to do is go to www.thewilderride.com or find us on Facebook, where there's a community of folks who are already talking about this movie, and we'd love for you to join us. www.facebook.com/thewilderride, which that is a running theme. You can find us at The Wilder Ride on just about any of your outlets, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, we're now on iHeart. Is that right?
We should be, by the time this has come out, we should be on iHeartRadio as well as TuneIn Radio as a podcast feature to download or subscribe to.
And Stitcher and iTunes and Google
and in
Play.
all the fans' hearts.
And in all the fans' hearts.
That's
Thank
what we
you,
hope.
Matt.
Actually, that's more than anything. That's why if you want to take a second to come on by either our Twitter or our Facebook page, drop us a line. We stay very active in social media because we enjoy having a chance to chat with all the people that take their time to come out and chat with us. So
and
it is social media. We're going to use it the right way.
Absolutely. And we hope everybody's enjoying this as much as we are. Love to hear your comments and any questions that might come up as well.
With that, we're going to call it done and in the books. Come back Monday for another edition, another episode of The Wilder Ride. Until then, would you care for a kipper?
No, thank you, Dr. Frankenstein.
Schwanzstucker.
Schwanzstucker.